Hey guys, subscribe for daily content. And if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks!
What's going on, YouTube? Metal Complex here, and welcome to this week's episode of The Knife Guy. So what are we talking about today? We actually have a classic subject, one that I covered years ago, but today I've realized it's much more likely for the people watching my content to be very, very new than it is for you guys to have been around since the beginning. So this is definitely a topic that should be covered again, and that topic is, what's the best folding knife? What's the best EDC knife? What is truly the best knife? Believe it or not, this question is insanely common. I mean, especially like on TikTok. I'm very new to TikTok. I've been there for I think a little over 2 months, and I've got about 100,000 followers there, which is great. There's a lot of people paying attention, but man, there's a lot of people on TikTok who are super unfamiliar with the world of knives, and it made me think. Well, like considering how many people there are on Earth and how big the knife population is, or the knife community population is in general. Well, yeah, the vast majority of people on Earth who might be interested in pocket knives in any capacity have absolutely no idea what they're looking at, right? And so that's typically the first question, right? People just they want to skip all the nonsense. Like, yeah. Okay, knife community, I get it. You're complicated. Let's skip all this, all right? Give me the meat and potatoes. What's the best knife? Oh boy, what a loaded question. Well, people, most likely vast majority of people in the moment, right here and now in the comments, people have just looked at the title, answered the question, then left. And so the typical response you'll get in the comment section is, there is no best knife. And they're correct, right? But there really is substantially more to it than that. Is there any significance to the knives out on the table right now? Yes. Many people who have been around for a very long time will note that a lot of the stuff, all right, fine. A lot of the stuff out on the table right now either is currently considered or was considered at one time to be the best of the best in some way, shape, or form, right? No matter who you're talking to, right? Whether it's Larry, your coworker in the parts department, there's a lot of Larrys out there who consider themselves the most knowledgeable on this subject. A content creator, a YouTube content creator such as myself, your best bud who you share a love of pocket knives with, right? Or just whoever, your dad, your grandpa, it doesn't matter who you're talking to, right? There's no shortage of people who will claim to be extremely knowledgeable or the epitome of knowledge on the subject, and they will say, this is unequivocally the best knife. At best, all you're getting there is just a very, very strong opinion based on anywhere from some experience, some very specific experience, and opinions that derive from very specific circumstances, right? All the way up to quite a bit of experience. I mean, there's people who will take knives out and use them for extended periods of time, right? Very few people out there will do what would be required, right? If we were to get like the general, if we were to get a vote from everyone in the knife community, you're never going to get everybody to agree on anything. Absolutely never, right? People looking at this table, you'll get people saying, yep, the Para 3, that's the best knife of all time. No, absolutely not. I disagree. It's the Hinder XM18. Nope, I disagree. It's the Demco 80 20.5. What? Those knives are super expensive. They can't be the best of all time. The best of all time has to be a budget knife because this, whatever. The Ontario Rat Model 2. You get a million different opinions. What would be required, I think, generally, like if we took a vote on what would be required to actually get a single person's opinion on what would need to occur before somebody was qualified to actually tell the world what the best knife was, which is impossible, right? Is somebody who has access to literally every knife that could possibly be used for an inconceivable number of circumstances in an inconceivable number of environments. And this person would have to live, you'd have to have a wizard's lifespan. The guy would have to have been alive for thousands of years in order to gain this knowledge, right? Well, I'm not talking about the bush lore. I'm not talking about outdoor survival. I'm talking about just general EDC. So you're talking about a subcategory of something. Oh, okay. Well, there's definitely not many of those. Yeah. So, like, what type of EDC person are you? What do you mean, what type of EDC person am I? Well, I mean, like, are you like, you just kind of throw it in your pocket and you use it like once a week, or you use it? Do you use it on the job? Do you kind of switch it out with your utility knife, right? How many knives do you carry, right? Do you need a stainless knife? Do you need a knife? Well, I don't know, but that's what I mean. Is when you're newer and you jump into this knife world. Knife is just knife, right? Probably the foundation of what you expect is knife have handle, knife have blade. Blade made of metal. There are different blade shapes. That's like the first level of complexity you come across. Oh, I see. So it's about blade shape. Oh boy. Well, wait until you discover that there are different types of blade steels. Different types of blade steels. Well, it's steel, isn't it? Just steel. Oh, you mean like the master Japanese craftsmen? Yes, the masters of the blade high up in the mountains. Of course, anime has taught me a lot about the art of the blade. I know the masters must live in. Yep, that's just historically some people made a pretty good blade or sword for a specific period of time for specific circumstances, right? So you learn that now, like modern metallurgy, what we've discovered, what we figured out, right, is how to make incredibly specific blade steel compositions that are heat treated to a very specific hardness to sort of complement the geometry that also is required for a specific set of tasks or a specific range of tasks for people looking for specifically that. And then in that very specific situation, could someone start to maybe consider finding something that might be close to ideal for them? It's legitimately that. Like, it's not a question that can be answered. It can only be, we can kind of just guess at it, and you can look back if you really want to. You can dig into every prominent content creator and say, okay, you can kind of take these guys' opinions. We can kind of take Metal Complex's opinion so far, but he admits openly that he doesn't really like go out and like pound his knives into the dirt. He says he's an average. This is true, by the way, if you didn't know. I've never claimed to be like some sort of master of anything. I'm a regular guy. I take my knives and I put them in my pocket and I use them for incredibly basic tasks. And I review essentially basic functionality and the design of the thing. That's pretty much it. My specialty here is comparing between a vast number of knives. I get my hands on a lot of stuff, right? So people looking for that, that's what they can get there. But okay, we can take Metal Complex and a bunch of other, similar content creators. Their opinions only go so far. Right? Then you got like the guys who may not have access to quite as much or have created as much content or handled as much, but they're going out and using the stuff for tasks that they're kind of similar to what I do, but I'm not out surviving in the wilderness. Maybe you are, then that's what you're looking for right there, right? You can take that, and then let's take the knife maker's perspective, right? Somebody who's actually making knives. Well, you find out that's a incredibly varying thing, right? In terms of how long have they been making knives? What type of knives do they make, right? Do they make knives that are purely meant for utility? Okay, utility knives for what setting? For what tasks? Skinning, for bushcraft, for general EDC. What blade steels are you comfortable working with? What is the general consensus on your products? How well do they do what they're designed to do, right? And then you have like all of these different types of knife makers that have different goals and different personalities and all of these different things, right? So then you've got all these different perspectives and subcategories of perspectives and different people and this and that, and you're trying to combine them all together. You're trying to take all of these incredibly like polar opposite, like different ends of this knife world, right? The collector, the enthusiast, the user, and then you've got are they Are they making knives? Are they using knives? You got all these different opinions, right? You're trying to like combine all of that stuff together and find one knife that, you know, maybe not everybody agrees on, but like the most people would agree on is probably like the best knife ever. I don't know. I mean, like, no matter what it is, you're going to get an uproar, right? It's not like you're going to get like half the people, more than half the people on earth voting and saying like, yeah, this is the best, and the other half are like, we don't agree. Like, the most, I'm trying to imagine a scenario where you could get enough people who've actually paid attention enough to have some type of, you know, weight behind their vote, right? And you take everybody who could possibly be qualified to give an opinion on that. I would say the best case scenario is you get like 5% of people to vote on one thing. Everybody else will have a different opinion, right? Everybody else. We've got tons of stuff out here that's been considered the best of the best for one reason or another. But it's, you know, and this is, you know, I'm not showing everything that's ever been considered the best of the best. I mean, generally the term is called evergreen, right? Something that has evergreen status, truly. Because if you look around in the YouTube knife world right now, just the YouTube knife world, there's a plethora of content creators, all, you know, we're all, you know, look at this new thing, and a lot of the new stuff is really interesting. But a lot of it is like real fleeting, right? It's here for a second, and it's like, wow, and then there's like another new thing, and you're like, yeah, not really, you know. Only a few models have really stuck around over the years or decades and are still considered to be really, really great by a huge population of people, right? The knife that I don't have out here, the Buck 110. Personally, I don't like it at all. I think it's ancient. I don't think it stands up to the modern knife at all. But it doesn't really matter what I think. It simply is. It's a part of knife world history. It is definitely an evergreen, right? It has stuck around factually, right? Now, if tomorrow, I'm not going to say some other content, I'm going to say me. Let's say I try to announce, like, I've found the next evergreen, right? I'm like, this is it, and whatever it is, right? Well, if it sticks around and everybody remembers it and tons of people own it and use it and generally agree, right, and people can't stop talking about it for 10 years or whatever, then yeah, that would be one of those knives that would be considered, you know, evergreen, like the Benchmade 940 or the Ontario Rat Model 2 or the Spyderco Para 3. Actually, I think probably the PM2 is even better example, right? The Hinder XM18. Whatever your opinions of these knives are, your own personal opinions, right? The fact of the matter is that these things have remained solid, right? Now, I'm thinking personally that the Civivi Vision FG will continue to be one of those knives, right? On this channel, I've always said, you know, dollar for dollar, that's a really hard knife to beat, and it will remain, unless, I keep saying that I think Civivi kind of screwed themselves at that one, because it is so hilariously better, from my perspective, than a lot of what they offer, right? And it's such a low price. It's just really hard to beat, right? Maybe. But if it doesn't end up, you know, being in the spotlight or being, you know, at the front all the time, there's a ton of factors that can affect this, right? A lot of people would argue and say just because it's in the spotlight doesn't make it good. Technically, just because a lot of people think it's good doesn't necessarily make it good, right? A lot of people could think it's good just because a lot of people are talking about it. A lot of people are yelling about it. A lot of people will buy this thinking that it's incredible and capable of all these amazing things and then never really use it for anything more than simple cutting tasks because of who they pay attention to. I think that's a fair assessment and adds another layer of complexity to all of this, right? What's the best knife? There's never going to be a best knife. There can't be. It isn't the case. The most educated person, the most qualified person, certainly not me, the most qualified person on earth to make that decision, whoever they are, could still only give you a somewhat kind of loop-de-goop-de based on his or her own personal experience kind of guess, right? I mean, it's certainly circumstantial, right? The best knife, which is almost certainly been said. This is like a copycat sort of repeat parroting thing. People hear it once and they say it all the time, right? The best knife is the one in your pocket. Yeah, okay. I mean, that's true. It's just like, I don't know. Sayings like that are always kind of make me roll my eyes. Like, okay, yeah, like it's just like a factually true in the moment statement, right? Oh, like who's it? Oh, I see. Oh, what such wisdom. Yes, of course. The one in my pocket. All right, but is that what people are asking? No. I mean, yeah, if that's the only one you've got. But let's define the circumstances. I am looking for what, the community generally considers to be the best pocket knife. And I am actively on the hunt, and I currently have options. So telling me, it's the one in your pocket, whatever's in your pocket, or telling me that doesn't do me any good, right? So don't, come on. So that's just like a knee-jerk sort of, an opportunity to use some. I thought that was clever when I read it. I've seen an opportunity to use it myself. That could be worth 5 or even 6 likes on the internet. Oh, golly. I hear people like that. I'm like, that's not what they're asking. That's not helpful. It's just like an observation that makes, best case scenario, the person you say it to goes, oh, yeah. Yeah, I guess you're right about that. Like, that's the best reaction that you can get from that. It's not actually helping. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. There's a bunch of sayings like that where I'm just like, oh my God. Like, what do you feel like you're passing on by saying that? Like, it's not doing anything. You're digging a hole just to fill it back up. Like, come on. So, no. I would advise against repeating that because it's more annoying than anything else. I think the thing you have to understand, obviously, I mean, we're 16 minutes into this, and this is like there's no reason for anybody to sit here and listen to me talk about this subject. It's very obvious that it's not, it's one of those things. I'm about to use one of those sayings that I hate and I find super annoying. It's not the destination, it's the journey. Like, well, yeah, of course, right? I hate that saying too, but it's applicable here and it's absolutely true. It's about the journey. It's about discovering what matters to you, right? Because like, I'm just like I just need like a thing. Like, I don't want to like, I'm not all about like getting it out of my pocket and like looking at it and like, I just want a knife to use it. Yeah, sure. You can go down that avenue. There's like whole massive communities that are like specifically like 100% utility. Ironically, we don't want to dedicate any additional emotional or mental energy to anything else other than maximizing utility and minimizing the cost. So, welcome to our Discord. Welcome to our Reddit. Welcome to our YouTube channel, right? There's whole communities, whether they realize the irony or not, that are dedicated to that specifically, where they will funnel your like-minded perspective and help you kind of zero in and focus on those aspects so that you can find the right thing for you as a self-defined regular Joe who doesn't care about any of that other stuff, right? Furthermore, the deeper irony of that is that those groups always loop back around into the enthusiast groups because you find that at some point there are elements that you care about that are outside of utility and you want it to be personalized to you, right? Because it's all about it. We're all the main character, right? It's got to be about us. Right? There's tons of little groups like that. So the best thing you can do is just accept that nobody really has the answer. Nobody can give you that answer. Nobody. It doesn't matter how much experience that they have, right? I got a lot of content. I touched a lot of stuff. I can't give you that answer. I'll never, ever be able to give. I can give you my best educated guess based on my very limited perspective and usage experience, right? Some of my knives are safe queens. I'm a collector and enthusiast. So there's some knives I have absolutely no idea how they perform and I don't care to find out. Like my arch nemesis, I have no idea. Probably really bad as an EDC knife, but I don't care because I didn't buy it for that, right? So my perspective on that knife is going to be really helpful for people who think like me, but absolutely useless for people who are like, I need a bushcraft knife. Tell me about how the arch nemesis performs in a bushcraft setting. I don't know. Probably pretty bad. Did you need me to tell you that? MC's pretty worthless. Can't even tell me because he doesn't use his arch nemesis. Can't even tell me how well it'll baton. Can't even. Well, of course. Of course. My point is, my point is, some perspectives are going to be more or less useful, right? Depending on what you figured out about what you want and what you need. A lot of that you cannot find. If you're hopping in here off of TikTok or YouTube Shorts, right? If you came in here from YouTube Shorts or TikTok, there's a 99.9% chance that you are a baby tadpole. You've probably seen Kershaw knives at the Walmart counter and Case knives at Cabela's. And that's probably the extent of your knowledge. Knife sharp, knife probably metal, can cut, also ninja. That's probably the extent, right? And that's okay. That's okay. But finding out what you like and what's right and what's wrong and what's ideal and what's not and whatever, it can only come from just handling and using and experiencing a lot of this stuff, right? Very rarely does it stay the same. Even people who have hyper solidified opinions that are legitimately based on like good examples of use and a whole nother element of it is like finding out how I'll come back to that, but finding out how patient you are in terms of sharpening, right? Oh, I need a super steel. I hear those are great. Oh, well, a lot of people find out they really don't like those because they're not really patient enough to learn, even on a guided system, or to sit around and sharpen or reprofile a blade back to life, right? Or even just strop a blade back to life. They're like, I don't really want to do that for that long, so I don't, But even people who have like that collective, like good experience, right? That a lot of people, not everybody, but a lot of people are looking for when they're trying to determine what the best thing is. Even they can only get you so far just by telling you. You could hear that and you'd be like, this guy makes a lot of sense. I like his attitude. I like his style. I like his energy, right? I could get into this. I believe him. I believe what he's telling me, right? And then you go out and let's say it's not a content creator. It's just like somebody that you respect. You respect their opinion. You could go out and actually buy the things they recommend, use them, and be like, oh my gosh, well, I hate this. Jerry was an idiot. I don't like this at all. Maybe he's not an idiot. Maybe you just realize you just have different opinions, right? Or you don't use knives exactly the same way. The more stuff that you use, the more you'll figure out how you feel and how you think. And sometimes it's how you thought. Most of the time it's different. But even after a long period of time, those people, I think what I started to say was people who have very solidified opinions in certain things, if they continue, and this is factually true, if they continue to experience more and more and more, if you stay narrow, then your opinion probably stays narrow. But if you broaden out, even somebody who's got years or decades of experience, right? If it's all based on relatively the same stuff within set parameters and they stay right within there, their opinion probably stays about the same. But if they broaden out, which anybody can do, nobody has experienced everything. In fact, the most experienced person has only experienced a small sliver of the pie in terms of everything, right? So if they broaden out, their opinions will change. They will, factually. You won't until you will. It's literally it's one long ladder climb. It's not even one ladder. It's like a wall with an infinite number of ladders, left and right, that goes up infinitely. And you just find a place to start. Find one. And then you can go up, you can go down, you can go sideways, infinitely, right? Whatever you want. You can go diagonal. Whatever you want. Nobody's wrong, but there's definitely stuff to avoid, right? A lot of people say the best knife is the one in your pocket. Well, if you have a crap, dangerous knife in your pocket, then it's not. That's actually not true. The best knife is some other knife that you need to replace that really unsafe piece of junk, right? A lot of times, really, really cheap, people say, oh, everything past $15 is all nonsense. You just need a relatively sharp blade. It doesn't even have to be made out of even anything that could even remotely be considered premium or just good enough, right? As long as it's just a sharp piece of metal and it folds right, then you're good to go. I disagree with that. I think a lot of the ultra cheap stuff is incredibly unsafe, and while it might work for a little bit, you're definitely much more likely to injure yourself with a very, very inexpensive, carelessly created, obviously manufactured object. Not that all manufactured knives are bad, right? You're much more likely to hurt yourself with something like that and cost yourself, in terms of a hospital bill, 10, 20, 30 times more than the thing cost, right? So yeah, it's worth the journey. It's worth discovering. It's worth figuring out for yourself. But the only person who can really answer that question for you is you. You are the ultimate decision maker. It is truly up to you, but you should get as many different opinions as possible. You should be making an educated guess. That's the best thing you can be, is educated guess. Use some things. Use some things the way that you're going to use them, right? If you're not going to go out and do the bush lord, if you're not trying to level up to be a level 100 bush lord, the ultimate bush lord, right? Then you don't need to pay attention to that, right? Now, if you are, then that's what you want to pay attention to. But if you're not, you got to ask yourself, like, what am I realistically going to do, right? If you're entertained by something, I think there's something, this is getting all crazy. I am entertained by things that I will never do with a knife, right? I don't want to preach. I'll just give you my example. I like watching Gideon's Tactical, and I like his perspective and his mindset, and I like his reviews, right? I don't know how much he does anymore, but I always liked it. And I was like, wow, I'm never going to do any of this, but it's fascinating. I'm completely okay being aware of that, and I enjoy it. And a couple of times I've bought a knife that he recommended specifically because I watched him do something with it that I found incredibly impressive, even if I realized I'm never going to be in this scenario. And I'll do that, and that's okay. I think that's perfectly fine, right? But to pull the reins back, if you're really trying to figure out what the best knife is for you, then the best course of action is to choose the latter that best represents realistically how you see yourself using the knife. And then you should try something. And if you feel good about it right off the bat, congratulations. You're one in a billion people who just jumped into the knife world for 1 second, found one knife, and then left. It's pretty rare. Anybody who says that that's them is lying. If they're here watching this, if they're in the comment section saying that, they're lying. If they ended up on my channel, they're lying, right? Most of the time, you're like, yeah, that's cool. And then you find something you feel like might be slightly better for one reason, or then you keep experiencing different things. And after a while, people tend to kind of, sort of gravitate back to one thing, right? I have always, I've always come back, like me personally, like, there's lots of knives that I love carrying, right? Personally, I own close to 300 knives, maybe more now. I've handled substantially more, right? And I'll continue. I mean, I do 2 uploads a day, so I do 700 and some uploads a year. Not all of them are brand new knives, right? I handle a few hundred new knives a year. I'm sure that eventually, given enough time, right, I'll find something that I like better. But I tend to keep, coming back to the Para 3 in terms of like, a knife that's done everything that personally that I've expected. Obviously, this is not the best knife for everybody. This is not the answer to the question. I'm not saying the Para 3 is the best knife. I'm saying my own personal journey, and considering I use a knife in a pretty casual way, right? The most long-term, consistent, positive experience that I've had with a pocket knife, which could be altered if I choose to carry different knives for enough time, it probably comes back to the Para 3 for me. But ask 100 people, too expensive, don't like the blade shape, don't like how it looks, not truly ambidextrous, right? I think they make left-handed versions of it. The blade, the tip is too thin, the compression lock is not ideal for also, there's a number of different things you could say, right? Anytime you get something labeled as the GOAT, the greatest of all time, you'll be met with fierce criticism. Right? On the hunt for the most perfect thing, you'll be given so many more examples of why it is not the best thing. And understanding that that's just part of it. That's part of the habitat, right? The more you hunt it out, the more you will be met with reasons why not to get it, right? So you just kind of have to decide for yourself. Get a bunch of different perspectives. There's lots of great knives out there. There are definitely knives that are considered great by more people, than others. Right? Like you have certain knives, like I said at the beginning or close to the beginning, like Evergreen status knives. Regardless of how much negative, criticism there is, how much negativity or criticism there is about these models over the years, something you should note is that they have remained in the spotlight consistently over a substantially long period of time. to the point where lots of people are talking about them. Not just content creators, but people on forums or Reddit or Instagram or wherever you go to get your information. If you hear a certain model consistently brought up over and over and over again, right, it's probably because it's an evergreen status knife. And those knives are knives that it's not just, most of the time it's not just fluff, right? Most of the time it is that way because they are generally considered by a large enough percentage of the knife community, they are generally considered to be worth your attention. At least worth your look, right? At least worth paying attention to. There definitely are. And there's tons of content out there on my channel and many other channels covering this stuff, right? But yeah, we've gone on for 30 minutes. If you're new, this was definitely directed at new people, right? If you've been a part of my channel, you've been around the knife world for the last decade, this is going to sound like, just repeat. But it's worth pointing out. This is something that, as much as it is talked about, I don't think it's talked about enough. We exist in this world where it's just like, new, buy it, look at this, it's new. Is it better? Not really, but it's new, buy it. Like that's where the knife world is, right? A lot of people, they are aware of that, and they say, boy, the knife world's really gone downhill. It's just like new things all the time shoved in your face. Not necessarily any advancements in the world of knives, right? It's just different. Brother, I got news for you. That is not a critical insight. There's no wisdom in that. That's the knife world since the dawn of man discovering that a thin piece of rock can divide material, right? That's how everything is all the time. Oh God, the knife world sure has gone downhill. It used to be about innovation. Now it's just about shoving the next new thing in your face. It was like that 10 years ago. It was like that 20 years ago. Ask somebody who was collecting pocket knives in the 70s. They'll tell you it's the same thing, right? We have way more variety, right? Whether, Jack or Jill or Bob or Joe considers it an innovation or just some sort of, fidgety, nonsensical, doesn't need to be a thing. I mean, you have a billion opinions, you're always going to hear it. It doesn't matter where we go. Somebody could actually invent a pocket lightsaber that was legitimately safe to the human hand, but would cut literally anything. It would, I know that that's absolutely impossible, but let's say tomorrow somebody invented a miracle blade. The blade was always sharp, forever. It was a lightsaber, right? Let's say we had a magic lamp. We could wish for something perfect. The knife could literally form to your hand, making it ideal. It could change shape, size, right? It could even for people doing the tactical thing, like they don't want it to be super bright. It's a lightsaber, but it can turn itself off, but still cut. Like it could literally do anything, right? It's a blade that could. You would still have people saying like, "Oh, that's, the knife world sure has gone downhill. It's all about gimmicks now. No real innovation." You're always going to hear that. Shut that off. Find what you like. It doesn't matter. You don't have to. It doesn't have to be purely utility. It doesn't have to be the most cost-efficient thing in the world, or it could be, right? If that's what you're about. It doesn't have to be under a certain blade length or over a certain blade length. I would advise that you check your local laws, right? But there is no perfect blade length. There is no perfect blade shape. There is no perfect blade steel, blade geometry. There is no perfect brand. There is no perfect country of origin, no matter what anybody tells you, right? There are good and bad blades made everywhere, including the United States. Believe me, the USA has pooped out some stinkers over the last year. Not just the last year, but the last decade, multiple decades. But they've also had some really great stuff, right? Same thing with China. They've got poo-poo town knives, and they've got holy moly, how did they even make this knives, right? There isn't. There's no perfect handle material. There's no perfect weight. There's no perfect ratio. Nothing. There's no perfect way to use a knife, right? So, maybe that saying the best... No, you know what? I won't admit it. I still don't like that saying. The best knife is the one in your pocket. I still don't like it. Even if it's true sometimes, I don't like that. It's annoying. The best knife is the one that you decide is the best knife after experiencing as much as you are willing to experience. And after you've made that decision, you can simply go about your life and enjoy it for whatever reason you want to. That's going to be it today. This was fun. Man, I love doing Knife Guy. I love doing this. So I'm glad you guys are enjoying it. Even if there's only like 5,000 of you that watch Knife Guy, you know, the Knife Guy generally doesn't get nearly as many views as my other videos, like my unboxings, right? But for those of you who do enjoy it, I really like doing it. So I'm glad. I mean, it's fun for me to have brought this back. Not at the same interval that I used to, but just doing it more often. So hope you enjoyed. Anyways, that's going to be it. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.